So this is the second half of my story, generations run deep, part two. Okay, so the I told you that the guy had told me he was a cop, and he was really a trafficker. And so anyway, he takes me down to the coastline. We walk along the coastline. We go to a hotel where he was hoping to get one bed, but had sent me up to get it, and I got two beds. And he made the comment, "You got two beds?" And I said, "Yes, because I'm not sleeping with you." And he said, "Okay, okay." So the next day we get up, and we go to a house. We go to a parking lot where there's a lot of cops, and we're in Okeechobee, okay, and where there's a lot of police officers, and they're traveling, or they're parked, and they're surveilling, and he waves to him like he knows them and trying to convince me he's a cop, which I'm already getting the feeling and the knowing that he's not. So then he takes me to this house, which I didn't know where it was. Had me drive a couple of places to pick somebody up so that I would be seen, and it would look like I was just hanging out with him. Then we go back to the house, and at that time I smoked a lot of pot, and I noticed my pot wasn't hitting me right. I was tired and my arms were heavy, and I wasn't thinking clearly, and I couldn't stop trying to fall asleep. And I knew they had put something in my weed, and I was pretty sure it was fentanyl. And they were doing lines of meth, or they were smoking meth and doing pills. And I knew that my only recourse to get out of there was to stay awake. So I asked them if I could do a couple of lines, and they gave it to me. And I started paying attention. I knew where my keys were. I knew where my stuff was. And there was $60 laying on the table. And they had already taken all of my money, and they had already gotten me to spend all my money, and they had ran my car out of gas and took all of my stuff, almost all of my stuff, out of my car and put it into this garage. And the guy tells me, "You know, you're going to have sex at some point." And then and I just looked at him. And then they started acting really goofy, like laughing and like uncontrollably laughing. I don't know what they were all doing, but they were getting really weird. And these two guys were starting to laugh, and they're like almost out of their mind, right? So I took that time and I ran over. They had put the gun on the floor so I couldn't get to it. So I ran over and I pushed the one into the other one as hard as I could and knocked him over, grabbed my stuff, and I ran out the door, and I got in my car, and I started driving. I didn't know where I was. I was not familiar with Okeechobee, and there's alligators everywhere. And I'm thinking, I stopped and I prayed, and I'm like, "God, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know how to get out of here. I don't have any gas, and I don't have a phone because they shut my phone down, and I don't know what I'm going to do." And I heard this voice, and it told me, "Drive towards the lights." So I started driving towards the lights, and I finally got to a highway, and I drove back to the supposed friend's house, and I told her, "Why did you do this to me?" And I'm screaming at her, and she's cocky. "I didn't do shit to you." And then I told her, "You trafficked me." And, "Oh, no, 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 no." And she started trying to backpedal and started, "Oh, I heard it was good. He tried to do this to somebody else, but I didn't believe it." And I told her, I said, "I need to call my mom and dad." And she said, "No." I said, "Give me your phone to let me call my mom and dad, or I'm going to the cops." So she handed me the phone, and I called my mom and dad, who wired me money to the nearest Walmart, and we had trouble getting it, so I had to go back to these people's place. And I borrowed the phone again, and she was gone. She done split. And her husband, I asked him if I could use his phone. He gives me his phone and he goes outside. I noticed the last person he talked to was my kidnapper. So I called my mom and dad and got that straightened out. And I ran out the door taking his phone with me so he couldn't call the kidnapper to come after me. And I threw his phone over the bridge into the water. And I got my money and I got the hell out of Okeechobee, Florida. And I headed back to Ohio where my parents lived. And I didn't stop except to get gas and to keep going. When I walked into the door of my parents, I could barely walk from the drugs that they had put in me. But then that didn't stop the story. That didn't stop the story. When I tried to tell people about it, they called me a liar. They told me I was schizophrenic. This was my family. They told me I was mentally ill. And my family caused it. Some of my family caused it. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying some of them caused it, made it happen. And they were afraid that I was going to tell people, so they started telling people I was schizophrenic. I had mental illness, so it would keep me shut up. I tried to call the Okeechobee police and report it. Only thing they gave a shit about was where the phone was, so I told them. Then I tried to call the trafficking national hotline. I called them at least 6 or 7 times, never got a return call, which I was supposed to. So, and then I was afraid because I'm thinking nobody's going to protect me. Nobody's going to protect me. So I started I left Ohio and went to Texas for a couple of weeks. I didn't feel safe there, so I left Texas and I came back. I got a place to live and a job, and I was working, everything was going good. Then all of a sudden I started having issues with my job. All of a sudden they had these complaints that I never had before because I was really good at my job. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. Anyway, the job ended up ending. I lost my place, and I ended up going to Nebraska for a little while. Didn't feel safe there, so I came back. I lived with one of my kids, and then I went to live with another kid, and then I'm here. And I have been here living in my ex-husband's home. We own it together, but he's here too. And I am living here for safety. Safety in numbers, right? And so I've been here, and the whole time I've been here, I've been having people hack me. And I had another job, and I started getting complaints there. And the last complaint that I had, I was able to prove that I was there and I did the job. And so they didn't have anything to stand on, but then they stopped giving me work. So I don't have a job. They Every time I tried to get a job, they would block my Indeed or they would block my phone so that I couldn't send anything to apply for a job. And they were still hacking me, and they were harassing me, and then they started harassing my kids and in ways that you wouldn't think would be a harassment, but they did. My kids' life started being disrupted. My grandkids' life. There was an attempt on my grandson's, trafficking my grandson. And pretty sure it was related. But anyway, there's more to this story. There's a third part. So I'm going to cut this off here, and I will give you the third part on the next video. Thank you for watching this far. I hope this helps somebody.